Aloha snack bar, everyone. It's the one and only the ape in the economist coming to you live on another hump day with the one and only man, the myth, the legend, in no particular order, the one and only Bix Weird. The men hate him, the women want to be him. He is the Sultan of Silver. What? Hold on. I'm getting audio in here. Give me 1 second. That just threw me off. Wow. I had some advertisement playing in my headphones. Okay, the man, the myth, the legend. The women love him. The men hate him. He is the Baron of Bitcoin, the Sultan of Silver, the Gandalf of Gold. He is the ring bearer to the road to Ruda. Bix, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
I am awesome. Remember last week we started, it was like Bitcoin.
Yes.
Remember that? I tell you, we're getting all our calls right lately. You know, if silver were to pop, then I could say, "Oh, I can retire happy now."
If silver were to pop, man, it's
coming.
You know,
it's coming.
It's coming.
It'll be last, of course, and because it is the ultimate death weapon for the banksters. So
it is.
They're going to hold on to the very bitter end. But I've been telling people for years, 150 years of price suppression. It doesn't end with a doubling or tripling in price. It's going to end with a 50 or 100 times what the price is today. So get ready for that.
Yeah, 1,000%, man. Before we went on live on another Hump Day, our inaugural 2017 broadcast, mind you, you made a mention. You said, what would happen if Bitcoin and gold were on parity? And I said to myself, ooh, that is where we're going, is it not?
We might hit it during this broadcast. I mean, Bitcoin. Yeah. Hey, Bitcoin's at 1130 right now.
Yeah, man.
And gold's at 1165. So I have a little ticker here. So if it crosses, well, it depends on what exchange you're talking about too. I'm sure in China it's already crossed because China is just on fire these days.
Oh with man, Bitcoin. Yes.
And there's a reason for that. You know, everybody said, "Oh, you know, China is going to put these constraints on the amount of money you can transfer out and all that." No, China is going to adopt Bitcoin as their currency, along with every other nation. As soon as China is not happy with the banking crowd. They're not happy with the derivative losses they took in 2008. You know, they were going to go to war over those losses, and basically they said, "Okay, it's up to the owner of the derivative if they want to honor it or not," as far as the legal system in China. So they know exactly what's going on, and they do have big plans to adopt Bitcoin on a national scale, which every country in the world will now. Now that we can see what's going on with the market rigging, and everybody knows that the numbers we see are fake coming out of the government, coming out of the stock markets. And that's the problem. The lies are being exposed, and when you expose a lie, no one's going to trust the system that lied. So that's where we're going. Bitcoin is everybody's like, should I get in now? You know, it's gone up 100% in the last 6 months. Should I get in? I don't know what to do. And I tell them all, listen, I'll tell you, this is what I sent out this morning on my email service at Road to Ruda. Yeah. So sign up. You would have got this email this morning. Here's what I said. Bitcoin has ripped past $1,000 per BTC like it wasn't even there. And the Bitcoin moonshot continues. Should you buy it now that it's risen over 100% in the last 6 months? That's a tough question with a very easy answer. Yes. Buy it to hold through the global monetary meltdown that could hit at any minute. Buy it to hold for the medium and long term. Now, if you trade Bitcoin, you are a risk taker with immense coconut balls. And I love that, coconut balls. And you should probably sell some Bitcoin before the inevitable slam down. You'd be trying to game the game and have fun with that. I never had the constitution or time to do that in such a volatile market. So I just sit and hold and accumulate. If you are someone who understands the importance of Bitcoin in the future, you buy and hold. Hold through the 100% gains, hold through the 100% drops when a government official says they're going to ban Bitcoin. Buy and hold is the only mindset that will not keep you up at night, as the Bitcoin price will get more and more volatile. Remember, Bitcoin is a tiny, tiny market cap, and its utility is limitless, especially when you include all the new Bitcoin technologies that are being built out. Imagine a decentralized verification and authentication tool that will end the lying, cheating, and stealing in not only the financial markets, think no more rehypothecation, but a tool to end fraud in voting, identity theft, record keeping, record storage at the DTCC, and on and on. The blockchain is a truth machine, and it depends 100% on the continued functioning of and acceptance of Bitcoin. The big banks want to embrace blockchain but shun Bitcoin, and that will not happen. So as we venture into the future, be armed and ready with your silver sword and shield and a nice supply of Bitcoin. And that was the email I sent out this morning, and everybody's like, well, what should I do? I don't know. I think I'm buying at the high. Well, you didn't say that. You would have said the same thing 6 months ago because it had gone up 100% in the 6 months before that. You would have said the same thing when I was screaming about it when it was like $220 a coin. Right. You're going to say the same thing when it's at $10,000 a coin. Yes, the Bitcoin price might get slammed. China might announce a ban on Bitcoin and the price gets cut in half. The reality is Bitcoin will be there long past these people in government, long past our fiat monetary system. So there is no right time to buy Bitcoin. Right now, you got hedge funds getting in. You got banks trying to get in. Some of these big players that think there's all that will try to slam Bitcoin, and most likely they'll just lose the Bitcoin that they have because there's other people waiting to buy. And right now it's 1140 and it's inching up to 1165 where gold is. That'll be a big key moment. And it's right around where the all-time high for Bitcoin, topped out when Mt. Gox was around. Like I think it was 1200 intraday. So right now, is it risky to buy Bitcoin? Of course it is. Is it risky in the long term? No. Is it risky in the short term? If you're scared, buy a little bit and then average in. Just wait, and if they drop it 50% or 100%, start buying it then. Or if you don't want to get in, don't get in. But don't come crying to us when Bitcoin's at $100,000 a coin and you said, "Oh man, I should have got in."
Yeah. And then you'll have the naysayers out there still ruminating.
But what can they say? They've already lost their take and says, "Oh no, Bitcoin will never amount to anything." Well, it's already amounted to something, right? And the question is, when will you sell? So it's like, they should have gotten in with their brilliant call that Bitcoin will never amount to anything, and then they could have sold and made 200-400%. So they got it wrong.
Absolutely, they always get it wrong. I don't know what the old school gold bugs are going to be doing, man. I don't know if they're going to be crying, or otherwise they're going to be like, man, they're going to be really sour, sour.
I know where they are. I was there. Yeah. I understood it. I didn't understand it. I didn't know what Bitcoin was in the beginning. Nobody did. Not nobody. A few really smart people did. But yeah, it was weird. It was electronic money. It could disappear with a blink of an eye and blah, blah, blah. We've been through that argument a million times.
Right.
And the old gold bugs are saying, well, it's this unbacked fiat system that we've been waiting for crashing for so long that's the problem, and gold is the solution. And I'd say, yeah, gold is the solution, but there's a couple problems with that. The transactional problem is obvious.
Right.
Walking around with a tenth of a hundredth of an ounce of gold to buy a pack of bubble gum, and don't tell me that silver will be the solution for the coins, because silver is going to be worth as much as, if not more than gold, and it should have been for a long time.
Right. And the utility aspect of it. Look, in order for you to deal in gold, I mean, look at Venezuela. It's a prime. I mean, of course, not going to be the exact, thing that's going to happen, but there's a lot of things we can learn from Venezuela. Those with gold, in order to transact, you got to go find somebody else who has gold or who's willing to take gold, this, that, and the other.
It's a good store of wealth, but it's not the best for transactional stuff. And yes, you can create something that is gold backed. I don't think any gold backed type of currency is going to work, because unless it's fully redeemable at a bank, you can walk in with your gold backed $100 bill and get $100 worth of physical gold, because of the loss of trust that's going to go on. But yeah, there's electronic gold that you can say, okay, I've got 10 ounces of gold in my bank and it's linked to this debit card and I can use that. Yeah, that's a possibility, and probably a likelihood. There's another problem with gold, in that there's massive, massive, massive amounts of physical gold available and in the ground waiting to be mined, that I've been digging into the last 10 years. And this is when I was a gold bug. So I'm not just pulling this stuff out of my butt. There's massive amounts of gold in the Grand Canyon. There's massive amounts of gold at Chocolate Mountain in California. Dianne Feinstein has literally cordoned off almost all of Southern California under a national, was it a desert wildlife preserve, because it is full of gold.
Wasn't that because she wants to protect the Chicago dung beetle?
That's the excuse. Same thing with the Anwar Alaskan oil finds. That's what the government does. They'll put all the real stuff, the stuff we have in the ground, the commodities we find, we're going to leave it in the ground until we have to use it. And until then, we're going to print these electronic blips and call them, Federal Reserve notes or whatever they're calling them these days. And that's the key. And there is massive amounts of gold, and I've proven it 100 times. Just go to the website. I have an article called Golden Secrets that I show how much gold, from Yamashita's gold to the gold in the Grand Canyon to all the secret gold hidden with the Chinese royal families and all that stuff. It's all real. It's all true. This is not just somebody making it up so that you stay away from gold. Look at the volumes on the LBMA and the COMEX. Well, the COMEX is even supposed to be all electronic, futures and options, but the LBMA is supposed to be the real stuff, and the volumes are through the roof. Is it the real stuff? No, it's not. But you sit there and you ask yourself, why does Germany take so long to get their gold back when that same amount of gold trades every day on the LBMA? Why don't they just go to the LBMA and buy all that gold that supposedly the Federal Reserve has squandered away? So yeah, a lot of secrets to be revealed. I think Trump will usher in the year of secrets revealed, and these secrets are so big and so great and so important. I'm excited about what's going on.
I'm excited too, man, because it's been for so long that Washington, D.C., the District of Criminals, has always existed and stayed viable because it's always been a haunt of secrets. Now, what would happen when somebody like a Trump goes in and one by one starts pulling at the straws, starts pulling at the strings of all these secrets, and so many things get unraveled, and so many things that were once whispered in the back corridors of D.C. is now out in the open, man. It is truly exciting, bro. Truly exciting.
I can't wait. And I mean, when you look at it and you do all this research, and if you're in the conspiracy world and you can go anywhere you want and find all this really good information now, and the fake news is what you turn on the TV and see every day. That's the amazing thing, is that our entire world is about to be turned upside down, and people are going to see that our history is not real. It was made up. And a lot of this stuff that we think is, has been the facts that we've been taught in school when we were kids. It's all a lie. Not all of it, but a majority of it is a lie. Where we come from, are we alone? All these huge questions that we've been struggling with, the answers are there. They've just been kept from us. And I can't wait for the criminals in the pedophile world to get thrown in jail, because that is a gigantic thing. And the Podesta emails kind of started that ball rolling. And a lot of people who've been fighting that fight for decades are saying, what took you guys so long to wake up to this? There's been documentaries about it. There's all kinds of facts and information, and people have gone to jail just, kind of we're going to throw this guy in jail and leave the 50 other people out of jail. And that's the kind of thing that needs to be opened up, and the pedophiles need to go to jail. And I think they will. I think Trump will drain the swamp. But, and people are saying, well, Trump knew Jeffrey Epstein, the guy who, flew the Clintons around on his Lolita Express aircraft. Well, yeah, he did. He knew him. And if Trump is guilty of anything, yeah, he should be thrown in jail too. I'm not going to say Trump is the be all end all, but we need to open up the cupboard and dust it out and get everybody who did anything wrong and illegal to face up, live up to their, the charges. And if they can prove that these people are guilty, they should go to jail. If they can prove they're not guilty, or, if they can't prove they're guilty, they shouldn't go to jail. But you shouldn't stop that process because they're, in a high government position or in the cabinet or in the Congress. I mean, that's where a large majority of these people reside, which is very scary. And yes, it will disrupt the government, but everything else will disrupt the government too. Taking down the financial system with the derivative crash, that will disrupt the government. That will disrupt everything. And that's kind of where we're headed. So it's going to be an amazing 2017. I think it kicks off, all the chaos kicks off, I would say mid-January. We're going to start to see it, and it's going to just roll throughout the year.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So many things are going on here and all across the world. Let's talk about real quick right now. Things are getting hot in Europe. It's getting hot in Italy. Let's talk
about it's getting hot in there.
Oh yeah, somebody throw some water on Mario Draghi. I don't know what Super Mario is going to be doing, bro. Well, let's talk about the destruction of the EU.
Mario, they have come out. Italy had their Monte de Pesci saving, bailout, supposedly, which was going to be, I think it was like, was it 5 billion euro, something like that. And the bondholders, the cocoa bondholders will take a hit, which they don't talk about, but they just say the bondholders are going to take a hit. But they can't really do anything to the other bondholders without, getting the cocoa bonds first. So, it's one of those things they don't talk about. And then Mario Draghi and the ECB come in and say, oh, by the way, you don't need 5 billion euro. You need 8.8 billion euro. and the Italy finance minister is like, what in the hell are you talking about? It is such a balancing act to pull off these bailouts in the first place, because you're saying if we do this and use government money for this, then everything will be stable. That's what you're telling the world. And then all of a sudden, Mario Draghi goes, oh, by the way, Italy, no, for Monte de Pesci, you need 8.8 billion euro. It's like throwing a firebomb into a kerosene factory.
It's amazing to me that these individuals with such lack of experience, such lack of intellect and foresight are involved in the positions of power that they're in, bro. I mean, you have to be a criminal. There's no smart. The only the reason why Draghi's where he is because of those backroom deals, man. Remember that whole Swiss franc peg when that peg was done with the euro, and whose son was on the other side of that trade making a killing? Draghi's boy, Giacomo Draghi was on the other end of that.
Is that his name, Giacomo?
Giacomo.
It's like that Cajun song, Giacomo Fidaye.
Giacomo Fidaye. Yeah.
All right, Giacomo. Oh, even better though. There's a couple things that are even better. Deutsche Bank, our favorite Deutsche Bank, who claims they're out of the dungeon because their stock price is at like $18 now. Their head, this guy named Peter Hazelworth, who 6 months ago was put as, check out this title, Head of Global Anti-Fraud Crime and Group Money Laundering Reporting. He was the head of it all. He just quit. He just left. He was there 6 months, and Deutsche Bank is the most criminal bank of them all. I used to think it was HSBC, and then I thought it was JP Morgan. They kind of all work together. But Deutsche Bank has so much dirty laundry that their head, this guy who's so important, who actually, before going to Deutsche Bank, he worked for JP Morgan, HSBC, and Standard Chartered, another criminal bank. So right. It's all this is a guy who's like been involved in all these crimes. It's not, he isn't there to stop the fraud and the money laundering. He's there to cover it up. That was his job. And he knows he can't cover it up, so he bails. He's like, I'm out of this place before I get in trouble.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty bad when you have the cleaner come onto this crime scene and the cleaner looks at this absolute smoking pile of I mean you want to talk about a bloody mess that Deutsche Bank is, man. I mean splatter stains everywhere. Everything's like this cratering pile of smoldering ruin. And then the cleaner guy who's supposed to cover up all the crime scene, he just looks at it and he's like, yeah, I'm out of here.
I'm out.
What does that tell you?
It's awesome. And I mean, another kicker. I mean, Europe is a mess, and it will be a mess. And Europe can't crash. I'm remembering back when Lindsey Williams, the pastor who was in bed with the oil executives, sure. he's always said, he's been off. He's missed a lot of things. We all have been off because they keep delaying this inevitable crash. But he said that Europe will go first, and then within the next few weeks, the U.S. will go, as far as the financial collapse. Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I think like in France, what's her name, Marine Le Pen?
Yes.
She just came out and said, "Oh, by the way," and she's leading the election and all that. I don't know, when is that election? Is that near the end of the year? Or?
I'm not sure, man.
It's sometime this year. But she came out and said, and she's the front runner. She came out and said, we are going to leave the euro and we'll redenominate French government debt
April 23rd
in a new currency. That's April.
Yeah. April 23rd.
If she wins that, what happens to the euro? What happens to the whole eurozone?
It takes a dump.
Well, if it even gets there, I don't think it'll even get there.
Right.
But yeah, she came out today and said they are, her plan is to stop using the euro, probably print a new French note, a French franc, and move on. And that's what Greece should have done. But Greece is still sucking on the tit of the EU. Actually, Greece is just taking bailout money, and they say, give us more bailout money, give us more bailout money. In the meantime, the people of Greece are absolutely starting to go the way of Venezuela, and it's bad all over. It is bad all over.
And I mean, it's pretty heinous what's happening in Greece. And I say to myself, this is the descendants of the Spartans. Like, what's going on, guys? Come on, let's get it together here. Unreal, bro. Unreal. Hey, here's a quick thing. Pretty interesting. You brought up that whole Pastor Lindsey Williams thing. I remember back in the late '80s. When I was a member of a church down here in Manhattan, still am. Whenever I get a chance, I go. It's Times Square Church, Manhattan. It was Pastor David Wilkerson, and Wilkerson was the man. I mean, that guy was prolific. And one thing I love about him is like he's a truth teller. He'll tell it like it is, whether you like it or not. And I remember he wrote a prophetic book, spoke about it, and he said that there's going to be a massive financial crisis. The likes of which the world hasn't seen since the Great Depression. And he said the collapse will happen first in Europe, starting with Germany. This was like in the late 80s, early 90s. Mm-hmm. Okay? Every time I'm hearing all the stuff that's coming out with Deutsche Bank, the Eurozone, and he says it's going to go from Europe and Germany and then go to Japan before it hits the United States. And as
I would say it would be a matter of days or weeks, not years.
No, exactly. And he said it will happen very rapidly. And this is back in the 80s, before the HFTs, before any of that stuff. And
I mean, this has been known for this transition that has to take place. It's had to take place ever since we went off the gold standard. And you can say we went off the gold standard when the Federal Reserve was invented. You can say we went off the gold standard in 1934 when the U.S. theoretically confiscated gold, or you can say we went off the gold standard in 1971 when Nixon ended convertibility. I think we went off the gold standard long, long ago. I think it happened when so much gold was found. It would have destroyed the gold standard. It would have destroyed the value of gold, and that goes back to the creature from Jekyll Island and the bankers who met in I think it was 1910 or so.
Yeah.
Put together the Federal Reserve Bank. And great book by G. Edward Griffith, Creature from Jekyll Island.
Well, let me ask you this. What's your take, man? Like, why was the damn Fed created on that island? Like, what's the deal? There has to be. I mean, these people are obsessed with so much crap. There's got to be a reason why.
Well, there wasn't. The bankers always wanted a Federal Reserve. They wanted a central bank because that gives them more control. And the U.S. politicians had been fighting them since the invention of our country. So it was kind of unusual for Woodrow Wilson to so simply and covertly sign the Federal Reserve Act. You know, it was like December 23rd in 1913, and everybody in Congress was, you know, enough people had already gone home that there was no real fight about it. Now, the question was Woodrow Wilson in the pocket of the banks, or was there something else going on? I believe, now I have never heard anybody espouse this opinion, and this is my own, another Bix Weird theory, like the Road to Ruta stuff. I believe that it all had to do with the amount of gold they found in the Grand Canyon in like 5 or 10 years before that.
Chocolate Mountain.
And no. Chocolate Mountain's the one in California. They found that in the 80s.
Right.
But this is a find within the Grand Canyon. And it's around the same time that, like 1903, 1904, when they found all the Egyptian artifacts in the Grand Canyon. If you go to, this is conspiracy that's best, but it is still a reality. You're not allowed to go to these places. You're not allowed to visit them. The U.S. Marines are guarding this area of the Grand Canyon.
Well, the Chicago dung beetle is a very rare and protected species.
They don't even say that. They don't even say that. The only reason they give that you can't go in this area of the Grand Canyon is that, the caves are too unstable.
Right, and you need the Marines to stabilize the caves. It makes sense to me, Bix.
But put yourself in the early 1900s. Gold was money. You know, there was a fight between whether we use gold or silver as money, and all that fight was going on. That's fine. But the majority of the rich people of the world held gold as their store of wealth, and there was not all that much of it. I think it was. I don't remember the exact amount, but it was a very small amount of global gold. Like right now, they say it's 2 swimming pools fulls worth, 180, 190,000 tons. And that was the story. Back then, it was more, I think it was 100 million ounces is all that was going around in global gold used as money, which is hardly anything, right? So I don't know, do the calculation on how many tons that is, but it's not a lot. So a lot of gold has been mined since 1900. But here's the deal. In 1905, 1906, they found this gold seam within the Grand Canyon that was billions of ounces. And it was announced in June of 1912 on the front page of the New York Times. And I have a copy of that article. Go to my website. You can look at it. It talks about these billions of ounces of gold that is going to change the world, that are being mined currently from these people out of Chicago. Have it's really tough place to get in the early 1900s. The Grand Canyon, it's not like we could fly anybody in, or there weren't even railroad tracks built back to get in there. And it was very rough and very rugged, and they knew it would take decades to get any gold out of there. But they made the announcement. And I think that's kind of when the banks were freaking out. And the banks were saying, oh, my God, or banksters and the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, who all their wealth was held, the majority was held in gold. And if you have, say 100, you go from 100 million ounces to billions and billions of ounces of gold, their wealth will be massively inflated. Their wealth would be deflated. The value of the metal will be going to hyperinflation because everybody would have gold, because there was so much gold. It decreased the value of the current monetary system. I think that's the argument. When this was found, the bankers freak out. They go to Jekyll Island and say, oh my God, what are we going to do? Woodrow Wilson before Wilson, it was Teddy Roosevelt, right? Yeah. And he was the president when they found this gold. And he sent these two guys, G.E. Kincaid, who was a Marine, and S.A. Jordan, who was a Smithsonian, one of the senior guys at the Smithsonian, he sent those guys to the Grand Canyon. That's when they found the gold and all that. And they told Roosevelt went out to the Grand Canyon and came back and signed the 1908 Grand Canyon National Monument Act, because they didn't have national parks, but they did have a national monument designation that they got from the Antiquities Act. So Roosevelt says, we don't want anybody going to this place to steal all this wealth. We got to figure out what we're going to do. He puts it in a national. He calls this section. It was only like 1,000 square miles within the Grand Canyon. This is the section with all the Egyptian pyramids and the gold. And if you go to the Grand Canyon now, they're still called the names of the Egyptian names. The Tower of Set, Zoroaster Temple, the Tower of Ra. All these names weren't invented by the Smithsonian guys. These were the Indians, the American Indians who lived there, named these they're old decrepit pyramids is what they are. There's even Egyptian writing on some of them. And so they got the name from somewhere, but they just happen to be the same names that the Egyptians called their temples. So yeah, there's a much bigger story behind this. Anyway, so getting back to the gold, you have Roosevelt says, I'm gonna secure this gold. They're gonna start mining it, and these people from Chicago go out to start mining it. They announce it in 1912 in the paper, and it scares the crap out of the banksters. The banksters go to Woodrow Wilson, who he got into the presidency in March of 1913. So basically, it's pretty much the first big thing he did was the bankers came to him and they said, we have a gigantic problem. And that problem is our monetary system is about to implode because of this quantity of gold coming out of the Grand Canyon. We have to do something. And we, the brilliant bankers, got together on Jekyll Island. We figured out, here's what we can do. We can delay the introduction of this metal. We'll pass this thing called the Federal Reserve Act. We'll create the Federal Reserve, and then we'll start issuing certificates upon without mining the gold, and we'll just run with that as long as we can until we can figure out how to infuse this gold into the system. And that's kind of that's the only reason that Woodrow Wilson signed the Federal Reserve Act on, I think it was December 23rd in 1913, is that it would have massively upset the social hierarchy. It would have basically put the United States on its ears as far as what is what worth. Nobody would know. And it also and Wilson was a religious man, it would have disrupted all the religious thoughts that we are the only civilized human race that's ever been on planet Earth, because oh, by the way, not only are there pyramids in Egypt called the Tower of Set and the Tower of Ra, we have the same things in the Grand Canyon. And there's hieroglyphics and there's mummies and they pulled out dozens of obelisks, the long the
phallic symbols.
Yeah, the phallic symbols. And that's exactly why on the back of the $1 bill we have that pyramid, and that pyramid has stayed there. If you notice, all the other bills in the United States have changed. They've been updated, blah blah blah. The new $100 bill, has gold all over it, and I've written all about that. Gold on it. It even talks about overthrowing your government right on your new $100 bill, which I love. And if you notice,
written in gold.
Oh yeah, if you notice that all the new $100 bills are 2009 dated. They have yet to. And remember what was happening in 2008, 2009. That was the big attempt at crashing the system and crashing the monetary system. And Hank Paulson went in front of Congress and said, bail us out. And then we ended up bailing out the banks. I think the next move, the next crash won't be a bailout, and I think it's been set up that way. And yeah, there's no way Congress is going to say we're going to bail out the banks again, because in the Dodd-Frank Act they have to bail out the derivatives from the banks before they give mom and pop their savings back, and that's hundreds of trillions of dollars. So yeah, that's our future. But I think that's why the Federal Reserve was created, to manage this gigantic problem of the introduction of millions of tons of gold, billions of ounces, but millions of tons. And I know all the conspiracy, you hear conspiracy people say all this stuff, but if you do the research and you dig in and it makes sense to you, my theory on the Grand Canyon, you still can't go in that area of the Grand Canyon. I do know a guy who has been there. I do know a guy who his dad was in the military, and he was allowed. Well, he wasn't allowed. They went there on a fishing trip supposedly, but I think his dad knew what was going on because he was obsessed with Egyptian artifacts. And they were stopped, and they're floating down the river trying to fish. And this is in the '60s, and all of a sudden Marines come with guns pointed right at him and said, "Get over here!" And they were taken to a base within the Grand Canyon. He saw a lot of the obelisks. He didn't see any gold. He saw a lot of the obelisks, and then they were shuttled out of there. So yeah, it's real, it's true, and it's the reason for all the insanity behind keeping this Federal Reserve System going for the last, it's over 100 years now.
Yeah.
And I think we are in the last days of the Federal Reserve System, which is great. And Trump's plan to spend all his money is right in line with everybody else's plan to let's print as much of this stuff as we can while we can, and then destroy the system
and take the whole thing out. Yeah, absolutely. Is that also the reason why Woodrow Wilson on his deathbed was so repentant upon?
Oh yeah, he said, "I am the most sad man." It wasn't his deathbed. He was actually going out giving speeches after a couple years after, because Woodrow Wilson was in office until 1921. So he went through another election, I think. Yeah. Maybe he died. No, he died in 1921. But his last act, the last thing he did in office was in 1919. So he was there for 2 terms. In 1919, he created he made the Grand Canyon one of the first national parks in the United States. And basically and then he died in 1921. So one of his last acts he ever did was to absolutely secure off this part of the Grand Canyon, although he made a much larger part of the Grand Canyon off limits, basically. And even today, the Grand Canyon in these areas is guarded by the U.S. Marines. Really interesting stuff. But all this stuff will come out when this unbacked fiat money system crashes. We go back to telling the truth in the United States, which would be a unique thing for us. We'll get to understand what our history was all about, really, and I think it's going to be awesome. There's going to be guided tours through the Grand Canyon, through these tunnels that supposedly held. I think it's up to 50,000 people lived in these tunnels dug within the Grand Canyon, and the Indians, the American Indians of the area, called them the Ant People, because supposedly they were aliens that look like the little aliens that we see on TV. So we'll see what happens. I don't know if any of this stuff is true, but it makes sense monetarily. I do know that everything about Road to Ruta is true, about Alan Greenspan inventing the first electronic fiat money and running the trading systems. That's why our markets are rigged every day today, is these programs that Alan Greenspan invented in the 1960s. You've got the biggest gold bug in the world in the 1960s inventing these programs that can control the markets. That's why in 1987 he was put as head of the Fed. Everybody was kind of blown away. Do you put the biggest gold bug in the world as the head of the Federal Reserve? Not if you want to keep the Federal Reserve going. And Greenspan's plan was to run the system as hard as possible, remove all controls, remove all the regulations around derivatives, which he did, and that wasn't an easy thing to do because he knew it would blow up the system. Right. And ultimately it would return to a gold standard. And then I don't know about his involvement in the creation of Bitcoin. I think he was involved because he was a computer expert, because it came out right when he retired from the Fed. And I don't think he's Satoshi Nakamoto, but I think he was involved with the group that within the U.S. government that started Bitcoin and has plans for Bitcoin in the future.
That would be funny if Greenspan turns out to be Satoshi Nakamoto.
No, I think that guy, the Dorian Nakamoto guy that they found.
Yeah.
I think that's the guy who ended up putting his name on the paper, because it was clear to me that he did have some involvement with Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And
Greenspan or Dorian Nakamoto?
Dorian Nakamoto. But if he did have involvement, with the U.S. government and with the creation of Bitcoin, then I'll guarantee you that Greenspan was involved as well, because Greenspan has run the global monetary system with his computer programs ever since. And when computer programmers, understand the power of computing and understand what it can do for you and have total access to any market like Alan Greenspan had for his entire life, practically since the 1960s, he's going to be involved in creating or making sure that Bitcoin is sound enough and strong enough to make it through, because that was his job. His job was the computer rigger extraordinaire, and he had, he probably had 20 years head start of computer programming before anybody even started programming computers. Because if you look back, like in 80, I think it was 82, Greenspan did a commercial for Apple Computer.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen that commercial? It's a classic.
I vaguely remember it.
Yeah, he sits there. He talks about how, everybody should get an Apple IIc because you don't want to trust your government with your money. And everybody, but back then he was a private citizen. Yeah, he was the head of the Council of Economic Advisors for Nixon and Ford, and because Arthur Burns was his mentor, and Arthur Burns was the head of the Fed before Volcker went in there. Mm-hmm. Arthur Burns always wanted to go back onto a gold standard, but didn't know how to get there. Alan Greenspan said, hey, why don't we just rig the markets with computers? We can go off the gold standard, which they did in 71, and I can control things with my computers until we're ready to go back onto some kind of a gold standard. So they let him run with it, and he was so good at it that they said, oh yeah, keep it going. And that's kind of where we are. That's why every single market you see is kind of wonky and does exactly the opposite of what it should do. Like the stock market should be diving, and the gold and silver prices should be soaring through the roof. But by using computers and by using derivatives, they can control any market. And that continues to this day. And it's really interesting that you've got at least 50 years of price suppression for gold and silver. I'd say for silver, it goes back 150 years to the Opium Wars. So yeah, silver is going to have the moonshot of all moonshots. Bitcoin will continue to rise and continue to rise. My prediction for this year is $10,000 per Bitcoin by December 31st. And my prediction last year was $1,000 per Bitcoin by December 31st of 2016. And literally, it was like 2 hours after midnight, it hit 1,000. So I was off by a hair.
Can't believe you're off by a hair. How dare you?
I know.
How dare you?
But I think with all the monetary chaos, we're going to see $10,000 Bitcoin by the end of the year of 2017, especially if we have a crashing of the derivative market, because there's nowhere else to turn. You can turn to gold and silver, but those might just dry up and not be sold at all, because the people holding them know that without the monetary system, they're going to need gold, silver, and Bitcoin.
They can still go to Jimmy John's Coin and Carry and get 1 ounce American Silver Eagle. That's all you'll be getting.
Tomorrow, that's the funny thing. When this monetary crash happens, everybody says, "Oh, we'll start using gold and silver." No, the people who own gold and silver won't be selling it.
Nope. And I'll tell you right now. I'll tell you right now, the company that I'm affiliated with, that I've been working with for quite a number of years, my partner, he went out and did 110 metric tons of silver in 1 month. And then when we came back for the order the following month, the refiner, and this is an LBMA certified refiner, and there's only a handful of those in the entire planet, they had to go hunt for gold. They had to go hunt for more silver. They literally had to go hunt for more silver, and they were waiting for the miners to deliver it. But the problem with the miners is not a lot of them are working the silver mines, because the cost.
They're all going out of business.
Yeah, they'll be going out of business trying to extract silver. They're losing money trying to extract. So most of the silver mines are on standby. They're all on tender and care. That's the status they're on. They're on tender and care. So they're just leaving it there, letting it run idle. No one's digging anything hot, man. Well,
I'll tell you, the management of the silver mining companies is a disgrace to humanity. I used to fight that fight. I don't fight it anymore. But you have a government and banks that so obviously rig the price of your, and they sit on their hands and they don't do a thing. They don't complain to the CFTC or the government. They're useless, pathetic wimps. And I've been saying that for years. I don't even care anymore because I think most mines will be nationalized. And if they aren't nationalized, there's a gigantic problem with the amount of fake shares that are out there with all the problems at the DTCC, that I don't think anybody who has mining shares, unless they know exactly when to sell, when this thing crashes, they're not going to be redeemable for, they're going to be worth as much as those pieces of paper we call US dollars. You can wipe your butt with the mining shares, because they'll either be nationalized or it'll be complete chaos, because they've been selling shares 10 times, rehypothecating 10 times the amount than the total float of the company. So nobody's going to know who owns what, and most likely the U.S. will just nationalize. I'll tell you, no foreign entity will be able to say, oh, I own a share of this mining company in Mexico, and I'm a U.S. citizen. Mexico, I'm coming to get my value. Mexico will just laugh at you because of what the U.S. has done to every other country. I think there'll be a lot of nationalization. That has a lot to do with all the land that's being nationalized these days. Obama just nationalized, I think it was like 1 million acres around Nevada and Arizona.
Again, Bix, okay? It's because of the Chicago dung beetle. Very rare.
Yeah, they don't even, and it's part also of what the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, that the military arm of the Obama administration, all that fighting about over land is all about what's in the ground. It's not about Absolutely. It's not about this is the property of the United States just because it's a property. They're just trying to land grab everything they can, and they know the wealth of the future is in the ground. It's not in electronic blips.
Yeah. Absolutely. 1,000% correct, man. Other hot topic, sir. What is your take on the timing of the crash or this coming global economic reset?
Well, in my latest report, the this magazine, the tarot cards kind of spell it out right on the front, and it has the Tower card, which is the card of destruction, right at the beginning of the spread. And I think, it should have happened a long time ago, but in 2017 is the year of the big implosion. But I don't think it's going to be like a pulling the Band-Aid type of thing. I think it'll be, a nuclear bomb going off here and there and here and there. Not a real one, but a monetary nuclear bomb. And then right. Derivative problem, and then problem with the pensions, and problem with the banks, and then problems with the stock market, and bang, 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 bang. I think we're going to see that for at least the first 6 months. And then you're going to see, I believe you're going to see a bunch of earth changes, a lot of more earthquakes, a lot more freezing temperatures along Cliff High's line of, that's kind of the big thing. We're going to be all kind of distracted from the monetary problems by all the earth changes that are going on, because the earth is expanding. I talk a lot about that in my 4th book. And
but the world is flat. How can it expand if it's flat?
I love those guys because at least they're trying, they're thinking, and they're a lot.
I'll give them credit for that. The earth trying to think.
The flat Earth thing, everybody's look at it. If you look at it, but there's other things you need to think about. And if you look at it, yeah, it might look flat, but how does your mind perceive the horizon? And it's all about your mind perceiving what your eye takes in.
Exactly.
Your eyes can fool you very easily, and they do all the time. But there's other things that they can't explain. One of their big arguments is, no one's allowed to go over the Antarctic on a flight.
I have people in Australia that have flown over the Antarctic all the time. From Argentina to Australia.
Well, if you look, I don't think it goes over the Antarctic, because I do think there has been a ban on it, but it's not because of the Earth is flat. It's because of all the things they're hiding.
Sensitive military sites, correct.
Well, and the gigantic pyramids they're finding now. We just had last year. You had Obama go to the Antarctic when he was down in Chile or something like that. We had the Pope go to the Antarctic. the Russian Pope go to the not Pope, but the head of the Russian Orthodox Church. Yeah, right. John Kerry in the Antarctic on election day.
Well, he has to ride his bicycle. He rode bicycles everywhere. He was probably riding a snowmobile, and he probably was, practicing so he doesn't fall and break a leg again.
Yeah, and you got 88-year-old Buzz Aldrin there, and he what the hell?
Look, the only reason Buzz went there, Bix, is because he wanted to be reminded of the moon. And the closest thing to a lunar surface would probably, in his brain, be the Antarctic. There's nothing there. It's just conspiracy. It doesn't matter that there are geometrically perfect pyramids in Antarctica. There's no.
And they're like there's pyramids that are 10 times the size in Giza. Go to David Wilcock's site. And I know everybody says he's a conspiracy alien nut, but hey, I've seen alien ships with my binoculars. I've seen it with my own eyes, and if you don't believe me, get yourself Gen 3 night vision binoculars, look up in the sky, and tell me what those things are flying around up there.
I have
almost every night. I can see, and they're not satellites. You can tell the satellites because they move at a constant speed. Yeah, these things are moving. They're zigzagging. They're different sizes, different shapes, way up in the upper atmosphere. Could they be advanced human technology? Yes, I think there's some of that. Did we invent it ourselves? No, I don't think we could. So yeah, I think all these secrets are coming out, and I think that's the big secret that Obama told Trump. There's a gigantic problem, and I don't know if you saw that article. It wasn't announced in the U.S., but it was announced in the BBC, and they said supposedly when Trump and Obama met for their little meet and greet. Mm-hmm. Obama told Trump about a gigantic problem. And they didn't say what the problem was, and then the BBC asked Trump what was the problem that Obama was talking about, and Trump said, "It's not my position yet to say anything. He is the president. He's the one who should tell the world about it." So all this stuff, and name your problem, right? It could be, we found artifacts in Antarctica. We found a huge gold find in the Grand Canyon. We've been rigging the markets for all 8 years of my term, and now we got to let it go, and the market's going to crash. We've been rigging gold, silver, so that now we got to let it go, and it's going to go sky high. It could be anything, or I think more likely it's everything. It's a gigantic problem. It's the problem of all problems, which is every problem.
Yep, exactly. Absolutely correct. Sir, we have come down to the last 5 minutes of our intrepid broadcast of the new year of 2017. Bix, why don't you give out your contact information, how people could be subscribed to that wonderful email list that you have. I'm a subscriber. I love your work. Please share with the audience what the Road to Ruta is all about.
RoadToRuta.com. Go to the website, do a search in the search function, any topic you want, silver, gold, Bitcoin, conspiracies, aliens, you name it, it's on there. My take on it, at least. And make sure you sign up for the email blast that I send out. I send out almost every day now, and because there's so much to talk about. And then also sign up. I have a YouTube channel, Road to Ruta, and sign up there to get the YouTube videos and stuff that I post on occasion. And there's a report called The Year in 2017 Analysis of The Economist magazine. And here's a big one. Go to Cliff High's website, halfpasthuman.com, and buy his latest report called Sci-Fi World. It's $15. You will not regret it. Cliff talks all about what his data is kicking out for the next, I think he goes 50 years, but especially this year. And so much of it comes in line with the Road to Ruta theory, and he's an amazing guy, and everybody should start listening to him and just taking his data and digesting it yourself.
1,000%. Bix, thank you so much once again for being on, man, for this inaugural broadcast of 2017.
Wait. What? Bitcoin did not hit gold yet. Bitcoin's at 1136. Gold is at 1165. So it'll watch. It'll be in a couple hours after we hang up.
Yeah, exactly. The way things are going, man, it's quite incredible. It's quite incredible, man. Absolutely correct. So, folks, thank you for listening in on this inaugural broadcast of 2017 Hump Day with Bix and V. And once again, you can follow me on roguemoney.net. Follow me on Twitter at the Rogue Money, as well as Rogue Money Facebook page, as well as if you guys have the Apple News app, just type in Rogue Money and voila, we are there. We're in the process of also getting Google News certified, so we will be on Google News. We are hashtag Truth News. That's going to be the new hashtag to combat all the fake news that's out there. And on top of that, guys, podcast. Download the podcast. Go to the Apple Store. Go to their podcasting app. You could just type in Rogue Money. Boom, it'll pop up. If you have an Android device, download Pocket Cast. Pocket Cast is the best, and I don't get a penny for saying this. Pocket Cast is the best podcasting app if you have an Android device. And you just type in Rogue Money, and voila, we are there as well. So we're pretty much everywhere, and we're continuing to to spread like a
don't say a virus.
no, I can't say a virus. That's going to be too bad. We're spreading like wonderful feelings of love in the air. That's exactly what we are as we are approaching spring. And guys, it's the end of the year. It's a new year now. Everybody's got resolutions. Bix, what's your resolutions, man? You have resolutions?
I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. My resolution is $10,000 Bitcoin by the end of the year, and maybe even $10,000 silver.
My resolution is to drop 30 pounds and look like a phenom, like I used to look like. Now I'm getting a little softer on the midsection, bro. It's all this good eating that I'm doing here in New York, man. You know, that's what it is, Bix. It's all this good eating.
Come out to California, we'll give you some vegetables.
Come out to New York, I'll get you some pizzas. Yeah. And so if you're having some resolutions, it's also time for you to do a financial resolution. If you need your credit wiped clean, I'm talking about wiped clean with like a Kleenex. I'm talking about hitting the reset button. Go to myfreedomnow.us where my team and myself can go ahead and help you. You could actually go there right now, book a call, pop in your contact information. You could book a call with yours truly where we go over your options of what we can do for you and what the program's all about. There's also an FAQ video on there, so you guys can check it out. Get your financial resolution for the new year together. If you need to get out of debt, you need to wipe out old collections, or you just want to raise your credit score so you can buy yourself a house, you can get yourself a new car or refinance, whatever the hell it is you want to do, you need a credit score to do it. So check out myfreedomnow.us. With that being said, we are over and we're out.